is left of the invisibility.
Welcome to the Jira Life, the place to find news, events, and interviews with the Atlassian community's movers and shakers. Join our hosts, Alex, Dr. Jira Ortiz, and Rodney, the Jira guy Nissen, as well as the Jira amigos in the Peanut Gallery, as we sit down and discuss the latest going on in the Atlassian ecosystem. Because we didn't choose the Jira Life chose us.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
That intro, man, tripped me up this whole week.
It's not that hard to undo. It's your software. You're the one paying for it.
I know. Sarah, always nice to see you.
You as well, gentlemen.
And our lovely guest, Jovin, welcome.
Oh, dang it.
Thanks, Alex. Pleasure to be here and great to meet you all.
You too.
I gotta say, Jovin, I don't know a whole lot about you, so this is gonna be a fun one.
So this is a week he did not read the scripts, ladies and gentlemen.
Says the guy who joined 10 seconds before.
Because he was.
Hey, I've had reasons today. I'm not going to go into here, but it's been a day.
Yes.
It's been a day. All right, Jovin, kick us off. Who are you? Where are you? Why are you? What are you?
When are you?
Let's just preface everything by no matter how Alex asks, it's with a good heart and intent. Who are you? Why are you here?
I've attended plenty of Alex's ACE events, so I'm used to his way of hosting things, and I quite like it. It's got some good levity and humor, right?
Indeed.
The why am I? I don't think I can answer that one, Alex. I'll have to.
Yeah, we're gonna get to it though. Trust me, we're gonna get a why.
Yeah. So I suppose I'm Jovin. I'm the global service manager for Clarion Events. So I lead our service desk and soon to be some of our other sort of central services using our Jira service management. I won't be leading them, but helping them get the most out of it is sort of, part and parcel of my day role. So that's a real short thing. I'm not sure how much we want to dive in.
Jira Service Management. That's a tool that I've been thinking about it a lot today. A lot of my days are usually in Jira Bill, but as you know, or as you may not know, but some of the people here might know, the three of us here have been spending a lot of time doing Jira duties and answering community questions, and there's a lot of JSM questions. So it's been more top of my mind of like, maybe JSM, I need to give it a little bit more love.
Yes, you do.
I'm going to be honest, Alex. After you pass the 120, the next one I suggest we do is probably going to be the JSM cert.
I'm going to go to the Jira one. I'm going to stay just in Jira.
It is Jira. Jira Service Management.
But I thought there's a 620 first, no?
I mean, I just did ITSM in Jira. I think that's just the ACA, not ACP, but that's quite a good one. It actually gets you some. There's always some tricky questions in them as well, right? That you have to really sort of read carefully. But good cert, that's for sure.
What do you think of this whole ITSM thing?
For me, ITSM, it's pretty much been my whole career, right? Like I've been in IT since 2007 now, and my entire career has been in tech support on the support side, right? So, level 1 help desk, did my dues there, on the phone calls and stuff, and then various other level 2 and sort of other flavors around major incident management, other things like that, and then some leadership. So for me, support is like a huge piece. And ITSM has obviously got a lot around the support piece, but it does also have a lot of those other things as well, right? It's blending more with Agile now. And so, it is starting to lean on those more traditional Agile tools as well. So it's evolving, I think, especially with, I'm mostly focused on ITIL and in the flavor of ITSM. ITIL is moving very, very much more to become more of an umbrella sort of practice, right? Like or framework. The shift from V3 to 4, there's so much more focus on, working in a more agile way and an iterative way and all that kind of stuff, right? So, I feel like, ties right in with JSM and the Jira sort of ethos of how you configure things and how you work day to day, right?
And I think we're seeing that too, right? With JSM, with the introduction of boards. Every time I would work with a client, they'd always be like, hey, can I put it on board? And be like, no. And then all of a sudden boards was there.
Yeah.
And at first
we literally, like 3 weeks before that feature came out, I built a project specifically to have a board that used a filter that looked at our service management stuff, because people were like, can we get a Kanban?
Mhm.
Can we get the board view?
And how do you feel about that mix, though? Like, I feel like Atlassian is really blurring some lines here.
I mean,
Are you pro board, anti board? How are you feeling about the boards?
I'll let Jovin answer, but I got comments on that question too.
Me next. Jovin, then Rodney, then me.
For me, I think it's what lets you work best, right? So, what we've got at Clarion is I've tried to configure our Jira to enable my team and the sort of the engineers or the developers. We kind of flip between those two terms. Interact with the queues as best, right? So we do use queues, but we also have the board set up, and we also have dashboards as well for people that prefer to have a more, kind of hybrid board queue situation, right? And I think, some people, they live and breathe in the dashboards area. Other of my team, as soon as we got the Kanban view, the board view in, they were like, yeah, I'm never looking at a queue again. I personally use the board view. It gives me a really good sort of bird's eye view over all of the tickets that come in through our service portal. I find it a lot easier to view that. But, I think when I was looking back more at my tech support days, when I was a support agent myself, the queues were very, very much more for me because, back then we didn't really have the board view. At my previous employer, we used ServiceNow, so it was pretty much queues only situation, right? And so that's what I sort of grew up on. I think that's what most ITSM tools build themselves on, right? Queues or buckets, and that's that, right? Whereas, we've got Jira coming in and just kind of breaking down things and sort of going, do you really want to work in that way, or could it also work like this?
Rebels.
To build on what he said, I think this is just another part of Atlassian's. They want to be able to give Jira in a flavor, in a manner that suits everyone within an organization. And as he said, some people work better in queues, some people work better in dashboards, some people, there are these things. But what we've seen with Jira over the past 3-4 years is this continuation of Jira, but for this team, Jira, but for that team. And we look at modern DevOps architecture, it is not just the guys handling tickets and the guys on the dev team, and they never shall meet. You're sort of getting that blending of where the two work hand in hand. So having a board view where the dev guys could get into the project and see something that looks familiar to them, but still be able to work effectively with the tickets as they come in from the customers, I definitely see as a bonus in just continuing that trend we see of a integrated Jira for all.
Yeah. And it does also give you that option to have them really closely related without actually having to build this integration, right? Because I know, Alex, you most recently mentioned on I think it was yourself in one of your more recent ACEs about, you always get asked about Jira and ServiceNow integration, but you can actually just do service management in Jira as well, and it's so much simpler because there's no integration. You just kick it off and off you go. It just exists.
And I know Sarah's in line here, but isn't there a little bit of value in the jack of all trades, master of none? Like, what happens if it's
that's half that quote?
What's the other?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes, you only got half that quote. The full quote is jack of all trades, master of none is oftentimes better than a master of one.
Aha.
How is it better than a master?
Feels straight into my my ultra nerdy spot of always playing the druid in any RPG that I have. You know, I like to be able to fill every single role possible. I think it's better than one because, you know, well, I mean, you can't need a blend, right? You need the hyper specialization in some ways, but sometimes it's good to have that broad skill set that allows you to connect dots between things, right? And, you know, you think if you know, when we're talking about tool sets, it's really about what makes things work for your team. So sometimes, I mean, you need that person that knows how to wrangle that general tool set and bring it in line to be able to be used by those experts, right? So yeah, that's the other thing.
Sarah, I know you've been patiently sitting there.
I know I have been patient.
Let us have it.
Thank you for acknowledging that I was patient. It's not one of my strengths. But one of the things that I think about too with the introduction of the other ways to see the issues is that not all the work these teams are doing are about just queues. There's all kinds of other things that at least in my experience, these teams have to do. There's keeping the lights on work. There's the task things that come in. And oftentimes, you know, it's a struggle that I haven't fully seen resolved yet is like, okay, I have queues, but I have other work. How do I know what to work on next? How do I visualize it better? And at least having options for that, right? Maybe there are some things that are queues, right? These are my highest priority things that I know I have to spend X percentage of my day working on, but then I know I have these other things that maybe are more of a Kanban style that I can have over in a board and just know that as I can get to them, I'm going to be working on them and they don't have all of, you know, they're not requests. I don't have to go back out and talk to somebody about them, but I just need to have all my tasks somewhere. And I am like really dying and hoping that list view actually comes over into JSM as well. Like all the time I'm doing something in list view and then I'm like, oh, it's not over in Jira and JSM yet. And then all my fantastic plans go to hell.
You start to switch over to the filters, right? Or the view all issues and build the filter there.
Yes, and then the filters don't do everything the list does. So I'm just like, bring it all together already, won't you people?
Well,
and the reality is,
let's talk about that.
Sarah, before we get into that, I need to introduce you to my friends over at JXL and Appfire.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. You guys speak very highly. So yes.
Yeah.
Alex
has been waiting patiently.
No, I'm waiting. I'm not a patient person. But Jovin, so on that note of, okay, so do you foresee a future where we just have a Jira that you can then plug and play the parts that you do or don't want?
1000%.
Like having forms, like having a queue,
feature
like
flags,
having request types. I
mean, you know, it like obviously I don't know what the gurus inside Atlassian are doing, but you know, you could definitely see that working, right? Like, I mean, we already saw them kind of rebrand at least Jira Work Management and Software Management together into just Jira, right? And you know, we've got Jira Service Management on the fringe there, but already you can kind of use a service management project like a normal Jira project anyway, just by disabling the portal if you wanted to, or disabling, you know, the inbound mail sort of, you know, ingestion point as well, right? So the lines are pseudo blurry. I think there is definitely some strong features in Jira Service Management that can be quite useful for extending normal Jira as well, right? Like, you know, issue types tasks or whatever we're calling them now.
They're still issue types.
Yeah. So issue types, you know, they're great, but you know, I think that extension of having the request type as like a sub of that is just great, because you can then flavor that issue type a little bit further inside there, right? And you can get around that as well currently, you know, with custom fields and say, you know, what kind of story is this, if you want to have like a subcategory of story, or, you know, a subcategory of bug or something like that. But you can kind of see how, you know, they could take the best of both ends there, right? So we got the board from Jira, wonder if Jira is going to adopt anything from JSM.
But at what point does Jira become ServiceNow?
Well, I think that probably won't happen just with how they seem to look and how they seem to be built as well. I think Jira is designed to be more flexible from the ground up, whereas I think ServiceNow, at least in my experience with it, mind you, that was a couple of years ago now, is designed to be a bit more guardrails and rigid. As I said, mind you, it's been a couple of years since I've interacted with ServiceNow heavily or anything like that, but yeah.
Let me rephrase that. At what point does Jira become iTunes? Where it does too many things that is so complex, then people want standalone products.
Well, I mean, if they got rid of, the option to have service management and Jira separately and all that kind of stuff, it could very well go that way. If they just rolled everything into this is Jira, you get everything or nothing. That could feel very much like a, maybe we just stick with Trello or something, or something like that, right?
We don't say Trello in here,
but
I mean, we do. We're going to say it here in a couple of weeks. We don't hate Trello. We just don't agree with them.
But it's one of those things where it's, I think all of these products have their strengths and weaknesses, and it's all about finding the right fit for your organization, and for your team for that matter as well, because sometimes some organizations use both as well still and have them integrated or not. So yeah, it's I've always said that Jira is the agile thing, is the agile equivalent of ServiceNow, and I think soon JSM, it's climbing in that Gartner quadrant if you pay attention to those sort of things as well, right? It's closing the gap on ServiceNow in terms of the ITSM.
But is it really?
I personally do think so. Yeah, like we last year we recently went through a process to sort of assess which platform are we going to use. Now Jira was the incumbent already. We were already using service management because of the fact that it was lightweight and easy to get set up and have a service portal, very, very simple and quick. But when we went through that exercise, we were like, Jira has invested a lot in improving the service management side of things. And the upcoming roadmap is equally as full of really, really high impact features that are just useful to have. So I feel like it is definitely closing that gap on the Gartner quadrants, in regards to that.
But maybe from your experience, when I might not have enough insight into this, but I still feel like ServiceNow is the incumbent or the dominant player. Mm-hmm. So how do you think Atlassian dethrones ServiceNow?
Yeah, you're right. It's probably still probably on the horizon there, like a decent track to go left on that one, right? But the feature rollout is just, even in just the last sort of just shy of 2 years since I joined my current company and started sort of leading and configuring their Jira Service Management, the number of features I've seen just appear in the features list as, hey, do you want to turn this on now? Hey, do you want to turn this on now? Or if you upgrade to premium, you get these ones here and stuff like that, which we're hopefully going to do soon. At first it was kind of like, cool, let's turn these ones on. We haven't got them on currently. Oh, it'd be great if we had this. And then, it's almost like, a bit of a Truman Show sort of thing. I'm like, oh, it'd be nice if we had that. And then, 2 months later, they're like, here you go, you can have that. They're adopting a lot of those features that I've been looking for. And one of the main ones that, I've been dealing with lately, which is, the customer forms on the portal, that form that you can attach to a request type is super powerful, but still kind of, has room to grow. And I was looking at the roadmap the other day, and they were looking at improving that even further. And I was like, well, that's exactly what we're looking for. ETA, I think it's quarter 125, so I'm looking forward to that as well.
I don't necessarily need to subscribe to Atlassian's roadmaps, though, man. I'm still waiting for basic stuff. I've been promised for a while.
Hey, since you recently saw the roadmap, though, Jovin, tell me, did you see anything as it relates to forms with any ability to have more than one form with a request type yet? That's the one I'm waiting for.
Don't think I saw that, but they did say that the conditional flows for the forms are getting improved. So
nice.
Might be able to work around the need for multiple forms. I understand the need for multiple forms sometimes as well. But yeah, having, I suppose, stronger and more conditional things, could be pretty cool. I don't know what's involved. Obviously, the roadmap only gives you a blurb, but I'm excited to see what it brings.
I'm hopeful, so I'll be on record now. I would love to see it work more like the virtual agent flows and the workflows, right? So you got more of a GUI interface and you can kind of see those connections between all of them a little better than we can today. I would love that for automation too, but I digress.
Yeah.
I don't see Atlassian dethroning Snow anytime soon. And this further.
I think the problem isn't necessarily with the people on the ground, because again, I know I'm biased, but having used Snow and Jira, I kind of do prefer Jira over Snow. But I think it's the higher level people who actually have the spending power and the decision-making power who are...
It's a tough sell.
It's a tough sell for them.
I think a big thing for ServiceNow, and as I was saying, agile, like Jira feels more highly configurable and dynamic. And what I was saying with ServiceNow being a bit more rigid, I feel like it's got that sort of like guardrails and governance sort of piece is a bit stronger. And so anyone in that sort of bigger budget area, they might want that extra governance and stuff like that. But you can always build that. And I think, as King Bob says in the comments there as well, like maybe they're not interested in dethroning them, right? Maybe they're interested in approaching, ITSM from a different sort of standpoint. And,
I don't know.
It's powerful, but it's also very expensive.
Their ads are really about bad service now.
End it, right?
Now, ending bad service now. But I want to talk about Bob's comment here about, so price is a big factor, right? And obviously ServiceNow costs 2 arms, 2 legs, and both kidneys. Just to even get the trial. Just to get the trial. Yeah, the firstborn is if you commit to the purchase. Right? And so, but Jira's not getting, or JSM's not getting any cheaper either. Right. And so do you think that Atlassian still has a significant amount of runway to keep raising prices, or do you think that Atlassian's going to keep hovering around that? Because what is it? Jira line aside, JSM is the most expensive Atlassian product. No, at $50-something a month.
Yeah, I think it was depending on what user count. I think if you're on monthly at 100 users, I think it sits at about $41 or so per month per user once you hit that 100 user mark, which is far more expensive than Jira Premium, right?
But do you think Atlassian will try to get above that? Do you think Atlassian will try to catch up then, because they're adding feature on top of feature on top of feature? Do you think they're going to try to get it closer to parity with the pricing of ServiceNow, or do you think that they truly do want a different ITSM perspective or approach to ITSM, that they won't inflate the price because they know they have a lot of runway?
Is definitely a factor here, because I've heard people say, look, if I'm going to be spending that kind of money on a service management tool, I'd just rather spend it on the industry leader ServiceNow and not spend it on Jira.
I mean, Jira Premium, at least for my org, still comes in, far under what ServiceNow does. Now, once again, it all comes down to your budget and who the decision makers are and what your specific requirements are for your platforms as well, right? But I don't think Atlassian is necessarily going to try and close the gap, because they can secure a lot of the market having that lower price point. But what we can see is that they're potentially adjusting their packages, right? We've got currently, the more advanced features of change and problem management are moving over to premium instead of being in standard now. And some of the more advanced incident management, features are also moving to premium from standard, right? And when I say advanced, I mean, they might not necessarily things that you would use straight out of the box if you turn on JSM, right? Like the integrated features with Slack and Microsoft Teams to have conference calls from an incident, or to use Ops Genie, or the alerts system as they call it now because it's been rolled into JSM, alerting those are moving to premium, but those are also probably things that, orgs that are just starting on their ITSM journey will probably not yet be ready to use, right? And that's the other thing about Jira and Jira Service Management, because it's really simple to set up. 1 to 10 users, you're free on the standard plan. Beyond that, it's nominal price after that point, right? Until you start to getting up towards the close to the 100 mark.
Right.
Like it's really easy for organizations to actually embed some kind of service management, not just ITSM, but service management as a whole, right?
I was going to ask you. Go on.
Yeah, so it's like, as Rodney was saying earlier, like we've got Jira for this team, Jira for that team, but like we've got both the Jira project, so work management side of things, but they've also got the service management, right? And it comes with those pre-configured forms, which just makes that runway so much shorter, right? Because you can go, we need a HR service management system, and it can come with some sample request types and issue types for you, and then you can go ahead and change that as you need to, right? But it's a really quick and easy way to get a service management operation working in your business. And as especially for really small customers, it is really a nominal sort of price. If you're down at that sort of 11 to 20 agents, it's a really affordable solution compared to most other service management tools.
Well, you can't even get a quote for ServiceNow, like unless you come with $1 billion.
But that's the thing too, right? 'Cause when you have those, lower amounts of users, chances, there's a decent chance you don't need all the premium features either, right?
Yeah.
And so when you can get but that's a challenge then, is so you start growing JSM into ESM, but not everybody needs premium, but you're going to pay for everybody.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of the weird thing too, because that goes against what Atlassian's trending towards, which is like all the stuff goes to premium now. And so at one point, JSM standard won't make sense.
All right, there'll be JSM Platinum. Standard will go away. And
I think for me, the two biggest sells for JSM Premium, well, there's three really big sells. The virtual agent is the great one.
Please don't say that.
Assets is a big one for IT, not for enterprise service management, but assets and CMDB, configuration management more so than assets, I will say, the configuration management. But the really big one for me is the automations, because you get 5,000 out the box with standard, right?
Right, yeah.
And automations are so useful. But when you go premium, you get 1,000 per user per month.
Right. No,
you can do a lot of cool things with that.
I believe it or not, I don't use JSM for ITSM at all. So I use JSM for all my project intake that feeds into my Jira for project management. And so I heavily depend on it, but I have it heavily customized for financial tracking, for budgets, for just, again, change management, project management. And so I've actually sat with Anu and I showed her how I use Jira in like very drastic different ways that ITSM was like not even close to it. So I like JSM. I just don't know that it's ever gonna replace the ServiceNow in the companies. Like I feel like Atlassian wants to replace them.
I think that may be a good place to pivot. So
on that note,
Jovin, you are known as the master of optimizing JSM. Why don't you tell us a little bit how you got started on that journey?
Okay. I'm not sure if I'm the master, but I'm a tinkerer by nature. So I like to just get in there and see what we can do and how we can best achieve that. When I first joined Clarion, we were using JSM in a very lightweight manner, right? We had it just kind of set up as like tickets came in and we handled them sort of thing. So I just kind of got in there and just tried to learn, okay, well, what's the first thing we can do here, and looked through the features and found, the service requests, the incident management, change management, problem management, went through that sort of stage approach, looking into that. And then, it's quite funny. A lot of my ideas did come from my previous usage of ServiceNow. I was like, oh, we used to have that in my, old organization ServiceNow. Can I do that in Jira? you can just dive through. There's a lot of settings. It's a complex landscape trying to configure everything, right? But I'm going to go ahead and say that not everything was optimal at the beginning, right? I had, when I was still quite novice, I would set up read-only fields by putting an automation rule in there to check when someone modifies a field I don't want them to modify, to then just change it back and, put a comment on there saying, you're not allowed to touch that one. I've since learned about, configuring screens and splitting the view edit screen into having a view screen and an edit screen. But I think, it's just been that iterative approach at my organization where I've been able to go, cool, we've got that in, people are used to it. How do we make that better now? How do we streamline that? How do we reuse across the various different workflows and stuff like that, right? And we've been able to sort of dynamically assign things. And, I think one of the sort of the big ones that we had was whenever we were publishing a new request type on the portal, my organization, we use SLAs a little bit probably odd. We have SLAs for our request types have a specific SLA associated with them. It doesn't necessarily align with priority. Some of our work has a very long lead time. And there's no way to get rid of that. Like it's got a lot of moving parts. So our SLA has to be long. But because it's got so many moving parts, we need to start on it straight away. So we've got our two, SLAs of first response and resolution. And they're at odds, right? Because usually when you have a really short first response, you'd also have a really short resolution if we think about incidents. But this one here can't have a short resolution. So we need to kind of have the first response of highest, but the resolution of lowest. So we kind of, rather than sort of reconfiguring my SLAs every time we publish the new request type on our portal and having it recalculate the SLAs for every single ticket, which, is in the tens of thousands of tickets that have come through. It's a long recalculation, which then obliterates all the queues and everything as well. I looked at how do we decouple that? How do we make it so that we can still use the SLAs while not recalculating? And so, use the custom field that's not visible, can't be edited by people. And that just sets the target, right? The target for the first response is this. The target for the resolution is this. And then we just set the SLAs up based on that. And we go, if that target is this, it gets this SLA. And so that's a really easy way to optimize how your tickets interact with SLAs if priorities don't necessarily work for you. On that as well, making sure we sort of understand what is optimized for our organization, right? Like how does things work best for us? And that's also about thinking that the same statuses or workflows that you may have seen in other organizations may not be the correct one for this organization. So having those ones in there is a really good piece, right? Especially when you're working with global teams. Sometimes having a status of scheduled is really useful because, I can't work on this right now because I need help from Alex, but Alex is in a different time zone. So I'm going to put this into the schedule status because I've sent him a meeting invite. And when we get to there, I'll then start working on that.
I'm just glad that SLAs is a feature of JSM that works, because when we get into major incidents,
major incident.
Well. It does not work.
It's the thing, Jovin. You got to salute the major incident.
That one from How I Met Your Mother back in the day.
But speaking of major incidents, like what do you feel? How do you feel about like features of JSM that are quite not polished yet, but Atlassian pushes heavily, like the transition from ops tuning to JSM, still not optimized. Major incidents. Not doing anything, not optimized. What are your thoughts there?
I'm going to be a real maverick here and say we didn't get a chance to use ops tuning when it was separate. We're going to explore the integrated version of it soon, because currently we've just got our systems sending emails to a second request address, and so we know that those are our alerts that we need to respond to. But major incidents, we've kind of built our own way of doing that, and this is the other cool thing with Jira, the concept that we borrowed the idea of epics and stories, and we went, okay, we've got incidents, let's at the same issue hierarchy as an epic put the major incident and use workflow, you use automations to help us streamline using that, right? So when we have a customer update, we've got an automation rule that goes in there and goes, cool, we've got a comment, or a public facing comment or a customer facing comment on the major incident, and it just automatically copies that to all the child incidents. Or we can go set all child incidents to awaiting customer info, which we've got set up to email the customer straight away and go, hey, we need some information. Here's what we need from you. So we can sort of really streamline that information gathering from all of our customers. And once again, that's because the default major incidents system was not exactly what we wanted or needed.
It doesn't work.
Because the flexibility, we can make something that works. That really streamlines our process.
And I keep thinking that because we've all sort of done similar things like that for major incidents, that it's almost like they're like, okay, they figured it out, we're not going to build it. Because I'm kind of hoping they would just build it and just give it like, let us enable this feature so that we can do that kind of relationship between them. And that had me thinking something else. Oh yeah, it was that, and what you were saying, right? And the way you do it is pretty much how, Atlassian, if you go out to their documentation and you go out to their guides, right? And it's like, you have to define what major incident is for your team and how you manage it, that they don't have that prescribed method like we're talking about, right? That even though we all kind of, I think most of us end up doing something incredibly similar to that it's not built in. But I do want to give a plug though, for anybody out there who is using JSM. Something I noticed out there is that now if you go out to your automations, there is a turn on system rules. Because this is kind of a big deal, especially if you're on a standard plan. Because if you had automations, I think they are for like waiting for customer and waiting for support based on comments, that I believe those are system rules that exist out there. And if you turn them on, then you don't get charged for them anymore, as long as you don't deviate from them. So that's going to help bring down some people's automations stuff. Anyway, shameless plugging.
I'm looking forward to seeing more of the sort of system rules coming in. Because you are right. Like there's some really sort of common pattern service management things that pretty much every organization is going to do in some flavor. If there's that service management, if there's those system rules, then you can kind of just plug some slight variables in. Obviously, they stay standard, but if you can plug your thing into it, then that obviously makes it a lot easier to fit inside that 5,000. Because 5,000 sounds like a lot, but depending on your volume, that can get taken away very, very quickly.
Very quickly, especially all those when issues created. Some companies can make 5,000 issues in a day.
Exactly. I had to deliver some bad news to a company recently. I'm like, oh, by the way, you currently have this many.
And it's such a myth that I just want to be able to buy more, because when you hit the limit, your rules are done.
Like assets, right?
We look at most like internet data plans, and at least in the US, I don't know about the rest of the world, but they have it set up so when you hit a certain limit, you have the option to buy more.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully, Atlassian's pretty good. We accidentally hit our 5,000 limit a couple months ago because of the way we're managing alerts. We turned on a new system and we were suddenly seeing a lot more than before. Thankfully, in that sense, there was 2 days left in the month, and I was like, "Can you please help us some way?" And they were like, "We'll give you some extra capacity to get you through the end of the month." I was like, "You can look in my data. I've already got a change record raised to redo my rules to be more efficient. You can see it." And they're like, "Okay, cool. We can see you're trying to manage this. We'll keep you walking until the end of the month, at least," sort of thing.
I didn't fare so luckily. All my rules crapped out. I was like, great.
Right.
Yeah, there was some broken tickets, due to the window. But
I do a lot of automation rules. So when a ticket's created based on field values, I have a workflow approvals. So I'm setting who the right approver should be. Which, by the way, that's a feature that needs to be in Jira. Period.
Approvers is awesome. Yeah.
I hate that approvers it works really, really well in JSM. it quasi works in Jira Work Management, and it doesn't even exist in Jira Software. I'm like, what the heck? Give it to all of us the same way.
You know,
The same thing with
if we
forms.
had a unified Jira, that wouldn't be a problem.
I was waiting,
It
Rodney.
wouldn't.
I was like,
But this is why I'm worried about the unified Jira. Like if JSM by itself costs $50 and Jira Software by itself costs $17, now you're talking about like a $70, $80 Jira.
I'm not saying the license problem isn't a hurdle. It very much is. But I'm saying it's a hurdle worth tackling if I was Atlassian.
Yeah. Leave that for the big minds in Atlassian if they ever get to that point where they unify it all. I'm sure they'll come up with some way to have it. Maybe there'll be sort of, instead of just free, standard, and premium, maybe there'll be, more tiers in amongst there, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
The two things, if they could have more tiers and if there was any way to decouple your plugins from your user base. But anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
The simple things in life, right?
How amazing would that be?
Shareholders are probably looking at Atlassian going, nope, never do that. It's free money. It's free money. One of my favorite peeves
the number of times I've had the argument with my customers, my users, about, well, why, if only my team is using this new plugin, why do you have to charge so much for the entire organization? I'm like, that's just the way licensing works. I don't make the rules.
Yeah. I was gonna say my biggest pet peeve is that discovered products, like JSM aside, but that discovered products you do when you're an enterprise and you have guard. And I always get a complaint from a team is like, well, why am I on the hook for this? I'm like, because why would Atlassian tell you that you're giving them free money? Like, it's in their best interest to not tell you that you're giving them free money.
Indeed.
Guard's a fun one, that's for sure. The guard was a fun one. Yeah, that 30-day trial is very important for, making sure that you don't have a scary thing at the end of the 30 days.
How do you feel about JSM Enterprise?
To be honest, I haven't even explored it because we're nowhere near, when you go on the pricing thing, it says for 201 users plus, right? So I'm like, we are,
But you know what's
many
for
years of growth
JSM
away from
Enterprise
that.
though? It's the Ops Genie. Well, now that it's folded in, right? But Ops Genie Enterprise comes with certain bells and whistles that is only enabled at the enterprise level. So you have to go buy a ridiculous amount of users for like one thing you're gonna do.
Yeah, right.
It's with the APIs and the way you can manage alerts to be an API for external tools. Like it's an enterprise only feature, so you gotta like pony up for like 1,000 users, and you only need it for one.
I hope nobody screenshots that confused face I just made. I was like,
that's gonna become the face of the Jira Life.
It's one of those things where,
it's like, did you catch Jira Life today?
I don't look at it because it's like, it's like looking in a shop where everything's just too expensive. Like the price tag is not there, so it's beyond your, the limits of your wallet, right? So I'm not going to look at that and tempt myself because I know it's sort of beyond what our needs are at this point anyway.
5,000 agents. How the heck do you have 5,000 agents? That's a lot of agents.
Give everyone agent.
Oh,
I mean, if you have money to burn, why not? But
that's a lot.
But you're an enterprise, though, right? You are that size of an organization. I mean, I used to work for enterprise, literally, and we were that size, and we probably had that many users.
My previous employer, we had, I think it was over 2,000 ServiceNow agents. I can't remember the exact number, but it's well and truly over 2,000 in ServiceNow, right? So, and we had Jira in the background as well for our developer teams as well, right? So it's definitely achievable.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I think Atlassian really doesn't have to go back and rethink their pricing because, like, I have a team who all they want to be able to do is archive a project, and you have to. It's like a 60% increase from standard to premium. When you don't care about alerts, you don't care about the Slack stuff, you don't care about automation, you definitely don't care about assets, and all you want to be able to do is just archive a project. And you got to pay 60% more. They got to do this on a more tiered level.
Yeah, that gets gnarly.
We're back to the script. Sarah, why don't you take one off the script?
Oh, because I don't have the script up in front of me right now because my phone went to sleep. So that would be why I went and take one.
Oh, good thing I put it in private chat.
I can totally make one up. And just because I want to know, right? We were talking pre-show, and so from Perth headed to London. And so how was that journey? What led you down that path?
So pretty much like I'm a middle child. My two older sisters had both lived in London. My dad's been in Australia. We've got this term called FIFO, which means fly in, fly out. So usually, if you work in mining or oil and gas, you fly to work for 2 weeks or a month or something like that, and you come back for a time period shorter than that. So my dad's always been traveling for work. He's done what's called expat FIFO, so he works overseas. He's seen a lot of the world through that method. My mum also, when she was very young, decided to travel. That's how she met my dad over in Iceland originally, hence the name. So like traveling is kind of like being in and around something I've always wanted to do, like, move away from the home city and experience something else. And luckily my granddad's Scottish, so I was able to get a English visa pretty easily through Ancestry. And yeah, moved over here with my sister and, my wife as well. And then, got my own place and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's how I ended up in London.
Nice. Well, any plans to try something else sometime then, since you said, you like exploring?
Well, I think at this point, we're just going to focus on trying to explore a bit of Europe and stuff like that. Because now it's on our front doorstep instead of Asia being on the front doorstep. But my wife and I, she's from Indonesia. We definitely want to move back over towards Indonesia at some point in the future as well. So that'd be a really cool, different experience as well.
All right. So which is closer? Because I don't have my that part of the world geography very well. Yeah. Is Perth closer to Sydney, or what's the closest city to Perth? Is it in Australia or is it on another, elsewhere? I guess on another continent is correct.
It's the closest city to Perth is Denpasar in Bali.
Okay.
And then Adelaide in South Australia. So we've got a joke where we just say Bali is the 8th state of Australia. It's not part of Indonesia. So yeah.
Yeah, because my impression or the image when I hear Perth is just like isolated, right?
Yeah.
Like it's that
very beautiful, quiet city town. It's we've got I think now Perth has 5 skyscrapers, so we're getting there.
What's the population?
1.4 million in Perth, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
And then WA as a whole, I think, is about 2.2. So there's another, 800,000 or so in all the rest of Western Australia, which is gigantic, by the way. I think it sort of pips Texas for size, I think.
Yeah. Because one of those strange geography things, when I learned, I was like, huh? Right, where Australia is the size of the US.
Yeah.
Right, if you overlay it, but then population-wise, just very different.
Yeah. Much less.
Indeed.
I need to go look at a globe now.
Now that you can actually see some of it.
Shut up! I still need a visa to go to Australia. Apparently.
Yes, you do need a visa to go to Australia.
I was so surprised when Mark Cruz told me that you got to get a visa to go to Australia. I was like, I thought having a U.S. passport, you can go wherever the heck you want.
No,
it's pretty tight, Australia. It's very, very, like so many places need a visa for Australia.
I was like 3 weeks away from going to Australia many, many, many years ago. And my sister's like, you've got your visa, right? And I'm like, what? So I don't even know how I got it. Somehow I got it very quickly because I did not know. And that was going to be a very bad day when I showed up at the airport and then like, no, we're sorry, your $1,000 ticket can't be used because you're a dummy.
I think Mark Ruth was telling the story that he actually got to the airport before he realized he needed it. So he was online trying to get it like very last minute.
Like, he was like, the plane was about to take off and he was like, can I please get a visa?
Oh my God. Yeah. Cause I was like 22, my first time doing any kind of trip like that. I was on my own going, and yeah, that would have been a nightmare.
I honestly thought having a US passport, you can go wherever you want.
Nope. But yeah, I think that's right? Like it's like an import fee. We're going to put a duty tax on you.
I think I'm gonna have to go get that Mexican passport too. Then wherever you can't go one way, I can fly out of another airport. Mexico's only a 1 hour and 45-minute drive for me to the Mexican airport.
Are you a dual citizen, Alex? Do you have both?
No, I'm single, but
Oh.
I've been told I can get my dual citizenship.
Yeah. So like Jovin did, right? Through their ancestry for a Scottish one.
My wife's a U.S. citizen, but she was born in Mexico. And so I told my wife, I'm like, you're a Mexican citizen. She's like, no, I denounced it when I entered the U.S. I'm like, yeah, but that never made it to Mexico. I'm like, you're still a Mexican citizen in their right.
Shh, don't tell them. Don't tell her.
So
I'm like pretty certain she's
there's
still
actually a website that you can look up and see not only which passports are the most powerful as far as how far you can get without a visa, but for your particular passport, what countries you need a visa for. It's called passportindex.org.
That's a
And
good
Alex, you might want to check it out.
Right?
Lina might have back taxes. I don't think Mexico collects taxes.
It depends who you are, I think.
Depends if you have enough income for them to want back taxes, right?
I know. So my in-laws have a lot of land in Mexico, and so that's part of the inheritance for my wife. And I'm like, maybe we should get something because we're basically going to forfeit all that if we don't go.
Don't want to risk that.
I don't know that I want to become a farmer anytime soon, but I figured if I'm going to become a farmer, I'd rather do it like in Montana or something, like be on U.S. soil. But I do envision a day where Jira is no longer in my life and it's just me and like some goats.
A lot of land.
I mean,
goats and land, chickens.
It's kind of hard sometimes to escape it. I used it to plan my wedding. It was very useful for planning the wedding. So it invades personal life as well sometimes.
Maybe. Hey, how much time do we have to the Quizlet?
Now.
I was gonna go off script
5
again.
minutes?
No, what you got 1 minute. Get the question in there.
Oh, well, then I just want to know more about. I'm looking at your post on LLMs. Don't do LL anyway. How you feel about the virtual agents in 1 minute or less?
Okay. I think virtual agents with the sort of intents that you can define, very useful. But I think it's more about getting those high volume, repeatable things through the virtual agent rather than the actual customer service. There are some things that a virtual agent can do very well because it's scriptable, and it just needs those inputs from the customer, and that also works really well for them because they get it instantly, right? Instead of waiting for a person. But for those more complex things, I think you need that human touch and the human sort of interaction to understand the nuance and the context. And that was the big thing in that with LLMs. They can't sort of reason or remove erroneous information, right? Like a lot of the time when you're seeing those demos, they're very, very, I'm going to give you the exact information you need to understand so we can do the demo really well. Yeah. But a lot of the time, just like in that example, in that paper, people will give you irrelevant information sometimes because they feel like it's relevant to the story. But when you're looking at it from an analytical mindset, it's not irrelevant. It's more symptomal, it's a symptom rather than related to the actual sort of underlying issue. And you need that ability to separate those two.
Yeah, it's an interesting area that, like, talking to people about getting them set up and using them, but then the practicality of how well do they perform afterwards. Sometimes I'm not around for that. Like I can help them get them set up technically. And then, I see it similarly with, the similar issues, similar incidents, right? And all of those, any of those learnings is, I don't have insight yet into how well they're doing. So come back and tell us though, if they get better for you.
I'm super excited to look into the JSM virtual agent, that's for sure. Because there is a lot of, in my team, a lot of very high volume, repeatable work that could very well be handled by a virtual agent. And there's other more complex pieces that my team are trying to work solely on that, but then they have to pause, do the high volume.
I probably dealt with 20,000 support tickets in Jira, and not once have I ever had the same question twice.
Like Jira duty.
Yeah, Jira duties.
We're very much, it's a bit of an unusual organization, my current one. We're very heavy on the service requests and quite light on the incidents. Incidents only take up maybe 10, 15% of our total ticket load. At other organizations that worked around it, it's been the complete opposite, right? So yeah, it was an interesting space to come in, seeing that most of our work is that request for help rather than something's broken.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we do need to get on to the quick Quizlet.
Thank you for letting me do that.
Absolutely.
We love you too, Sarah.
So, Jovin, I'm assuming you read the script. You know how these work. We're going to give you 5 questions. They're going to be A, B, yes, no, or fill in the blank. The object is to answer them as fast as possible, so we get your most honest answer. You will be allowed to explain your answer afterwards, but we want your answer as fast as possible. And the real tricky part is Alex will be judging you.
Yes.
On every answer.
That's what I was going to say. You will always be wrong. Sorry.
Okay. No, this is what I was nervous about when I saw that earlier.
All right. Again, so starting out, first question, real softball. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Ooh. Star Trek. However, Star Wars was my first interest out of the two. So I still like them both.
Alex?
Sounds good. I don't particularly care for Star Trek or Star Wars, so potato to me.
That's why it's the softball. All right, so second one. Finish the sentence. The marketplace app I cannot live without is?
Soon to be refined. Really excited about what Refine's going to bring.
Look in the scroll.
Reviews for backups? Oh, that
no, Refined is friends too. They're off on their European tour following TEAM24 Europe. So them resolution.
Yeah, I actually missed their event in London yesterday. I think it was.
Yesterday it was, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of FOMO watching all the recordings pop up on LinkedIn today.
Absolutely.
All right. Third question. iOS or Android?
iOS. Staunchly iOS. Yeah.
You're doing well. You're doing well.
Gave it away.
Not biased at all there. I used to work for them as well.
Android is for suckers.
Android is for hackers.
Every platform has its intended use. That's the view I have. I personally use iPhone for phone, but I have a MacBook. I also have a Unix server that I use, and I also use Windows in the office. So, each one of those. I was an Apple genius in the Perth City store. Yeah.
All right. Fourth question. If you could pick any fictional character to help you run an Atlassian system, who would it be and why?
Data from Star Trek.
That's a good one.
Yeah, just because, he's an android, but he has that empathy, or at least tries to show empathy to the best he possibly can.
Did you just say Android was better?
No. Fictionalized androids are better.
My wife uses Android, so it's a touchy subject in our household.
Texting can be such a pain when that happens, though.
WhatsApp gets around all those barriers.
That's true. That's true.
All right. So last question. If you had to give a TED Talk on something completely unrelated to tech, what would it be?
Completely unrelated to tech?
Yes.
It would probably be... I'd have to probably go with Warhammer 40K, specifically talking about the Tyrannid race in that. So, yeah.
What?
That is Ultra Geek.
Ultra Geek. It's a tabletop. It's a tabletop war game where you buy little plastic miniatures that are incredibly expensive.
Of course.
You build them and you paint them, and then you play sort of matched games.
He says you build them and you paint them. What he's leaving out is for some of them, you have to paint like 40 or 50 of them at a time.
Yeah, and that's what I collect. I collect the Tyranids. They're like a swarm alien race. So instead of just having like 10 really cool looking dudes, I've got like 40 things that I have to paint for the same sort of equal. I don't explain it very well. I definitely recommend looking up Henry Cavill explaining it. He explains it very, very well.
He does.
But that's not fair. Sarah's going to be staring at Henry and not understanding what you're
Well, I'm just thinking, I don't know you're not explaining it well. I think you're brilliant. I'm like, okay, I totally get it.
My wife's weakness is Henry Cavill. She just watches The Witcher.
Gotcha. Okay. Like, I don't know who that is. Was he? I don't know. Was
Superman.
he popular in the 80s?
He also played Superman in the DC movies.
Like Superman, like the most modern Superman. Almost most modern.
And now she's going to look it up after the show.
I kind of have an idea who he is. But...
So, Jovin, thank you so much for being on. It's been a pleasure having you. We definitely need to have you back because I don't think we finished either conversation.
No, I'm looking at the
thanks very much for having me.
Part 2 notes we didn't even get because I diverged us. It was awesome.
I mean, that's what happens on the Jira Life. We never stick to script. I don't know how our producer puts up with us.
I don't know why we have a script.
But ladies and gentlemen, next week we have
the Jira Life. The Jira Life chose me. I didn't choose it.
Technical difficulty.
I didn't choose the Jira Life. The Jira Life chose me.
Yep, we have on Dr. Valerie next week.
The doctor versus doctor.
Yep. And as she said, we didn't choose a Jira Life. Jira Life chose us. Catch you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to the Jira Life. Our hosts are Alex, Dr. Jira Ortiz, and Rodney, the Jira Guy, Nissen. You can find Alex on YouTube at 8Tech Tutorials, and Rodney's blog is found over at thejiraguy.com. Our producers are Robert King Bob Wen and Lina Ortiz. You can catch us live as we record this podcast every Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on YouTube at The Jira Life. Be sure to join us and our other Jira Amigos of the Peanut Gallery every week to ask your questions, let us know your comments, and just tell us what you're up to. But if you can't join us live, you can still catch the replay over on YouTube. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell while you're watching. We're also available as a podcast over on Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you listen to it and think it deserves a rating, we would very much appreciate it, as it will help others discover the Jira Life. Because we didn't choose the Jira Life. The Jira Life chose us.